we have not talked about Ja Morant at all this year. And the Memphis Grizzlies are one of the top teams in the Western Conference, right? So they've had a bounce back season after the miserable year last year. They traded Marcus Smart, who was a vet who they acquired last year, in the hope that, hey, you know what, maybe he can show up some perimeter defense, some ball handling, and he can play next to Ja. Ja has played okay this year. Jaren Jackson has taken on the mantle of being the number one option. That's why he's going to the All-Star game, and he's in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. I say all that to say, we have not talked about Ja Morant. There has not been any crazy stories about Ja Morant, and the NBA, who still needs desperately to invest in young players who are fan-friendly and who kids like, are not yet investing in the Ja Morant business. Do they know something that we don't? And if they do know something that we don't, why is T. Morant going to have his ass out there questioning the integrity of the game, the integrity of the officials? You know what that sounds like? That's Josh Tippin said. It sounds like T. Morant said some crazy stuff. Like, y'all not giving my son calls because of one reason or another, either related to gambling or money or something like that. And brother, you don't have the space to say anything about your son being mistreated in a game by the officials, because your son is still on thin ice, right? But because the league hasn't invested in him, so that means that the league doesn't view him as somebody that's trustworthy, which means sit your ass down.
You know what? I don't really care what T. Morant says. He can say whatever he wants. I don't care. He's an NBA dad. It's fine. We've seen NBA dads say crazy stuff.
You think I'm overreacting?
A little bit.
Really?
Yeah, I don't really care what T. Morant says. It's fine.
I care.
T. Morant is known. His vibe is that he says whatever comes to mind. Like his charm is that he says whatever comes to mind. Now, I don't know T. Morant.
Right.
I only know him as a public figure, and I know him as like sparring with Karl Anthony Towns' father in an extremely good-humored, very almost wholesome way during that playoff series a couple years ago between Minnesota and Memphis. And like, I know him as the guy who pops up in NBA. How do we even put it? Like NBA side conversations and NBA side plot lines like this. I don't know. He's a dad. He's just an NBA dad. I don't think it really reflects on Ja Morant. Ja Morant has had his screw ups. I just don't really think it reflects when, what's he supposed to do? It's his dad. You know, he's close with his dad.
No, he can't.
His dad's going to say some stuff.
Ja can't do anything because that's his dad. But the thing is,
Ja doesn't. What are you supposed to say?
But Ja doesn't need that. Ja does not need that type of attention on him right now.
No,
that's
he doesn't.
The thing.
He doesn't. But I think Ja has been a model citizen this year. I think Ja. That's why we haven't heard anything about Ja. And for what it's worth, as somebody who loves watching the Memphis Grizzlies, because I love watching how they play, because they just dissect these teams with these incredible cuts and they move so well off the ball and they never set screens. Like they just don't set screens. They're just all these really interesting cuts. I think they're tremendously well coached and they play beautiful basketball. They guard really well. Love Jaren Jackson. I would not say Ja's been okay this year. I think Ja's been really good this year. I think he's been really, he's been really, really good for them. And Ja is like a pick and roll point guard, and they never run pick and roll. And he's been so great at adapting to how they're running their system differently and still being a tremendous facilitator. I actually think Ja has been great this year. I think he's been really, really good. He's just been injured for parts of it.
Yeah, and I think that to me that goes into it, like him saying, "I'm not dunking no more," or whatever the case may be. You know what I mean? Like he's had as good of a bounce back year. Like it's not like we're talking about Ja Morant in the MVP discussions or anything like that. He's played in 31 games this year, and Memphis traditionally up until last year had always been able to withstand missing Ja Morant for extended periods of time. There was the one year that they were 18-2 without Ja Morant. That's not to say that they're a better team without him, but they are better able to withstand the absences because of the way that their personnel is built and style of play. I'm with you. I like watching them play too, and I love watching Ja Morant play, right? I love watching the kid play. I've never thought he always had the outstanding impact on winning the way that people said he did, but that doesn't mean I think he's a bad player, not an all-star player, or anything like that. My general point is, and maybe this is because I heard stuff around the trade deadline, Fred, is Memphis moving Ja? Like, I've heard very, very quiet, whispered things in rooms that we don't like to talk about, like, you want me on that wall, you need me on that wall, like that type of thing, Fred. Like, people have said, hey, go check in on Memphis. I've heard of them quietly asking around about Ja Morant. Now to balance this out, I've talked to people in Memphis, and they're like, absolutely not. Like, there was never any discussion about that. But that being said, Ja Morant's on thin ice. Nike is still putting this shoe out, but they're not like really marketing and putting a lot of energy behind it. The NBA hasn't embraced you yet because they're not sure that they can trust you. The last thing you need is your dad acting a plumb fool on the sidelines. You're right. He's an NBA dad, and NBA parents act the fool. The one NBA parent that can't act the fool is you. Right?
I mean, I guess you're right. I just kind of think it's going to blow over quick and no one's going to care.
Maybe so.
And it's just part of the Team Morant. Like, you want to talk about the brand? It's part of the Team Morant brand. Like, it is, he's unfiltered. He says anything. The reason that Team Morant came off so likable during that playoff series with Minnesota a couple years ago was because it was like, oh my goodness, he and Karl Anthony Towns' dad, Karl Towns, are saying whatever to each other, and they obviously get along great, and they're just so enjoying having their sons be like the stars of a playoff series against each other. Look at these proud dads. How likable is this? And it's like, I'm not saying that whatever Team Morant said, I'm not saying that the referees were not justified in doing it. Sounds like they probably were.
Right.
Like, they were probably justified. I just feel less strongly when it's like an emotional dad who we all know is emotional doing some emotional stuff.
You just can't get yourself thrown out. Like, I have the part of the NBA experience is the proximity from players to fans and from fans to like the game as a whole. Like, they're not wearing helmets. You can see them, all this other type of stuff. So that's the beauty of it. And officials take a lot of abuse. Like, I'm not here caping for the officials, but I'm saying whatever you said that outside the pale of what normal bad fan behavior is very rare that officials will point out a fan and throw him out of the game. It's also very rare that they will just say, you know what, we're going to throw you out just without a warning. Something tells me that Team Morant was warned throughout the course of that game because they said we knew that that's Ja Morant's dad, which means we're not inclined to throw you out the game because we don't want this to be the story, which also means because we don't want that to be the story, T, can you cool it? Can you calm it down? Can you not say that? And then you're a habitual line stepper? Your ass is in this because your son was a habitual line stepper. What are we doing?
Also, I have to say, if it in any way weren't justified, we would know what he said. You know, he would be out there being like, all I said was this, you know, but that's not the case. So I'm sure it was justified. It had to be justified. I don't know. I guess I just don't. It doesn't really do anything for me.
Just say it. I'm the black man overreacting. I'm the angry black man.
I'm defending a black man.
Say it. No,
I'm defending a black man in his ability to be angry. T. Morant was angry and said some crap, and I'm defending him. So I can't win in this hypothetical you're throwing out there.
It's two Americas that you have zero way to win it. I love it. Now, last thing before we go. In the post-trade deadline world, is there, because a lot of teams made a lot of moves, some of them minor, more so than others, and we get so much attention on the Luka AD stuff and everything and the Jimmy stuff. Is there a team that you say, you know what, post-trade deadline, I look at them differently in a positive way, or even in a completely negative way than I looked at them before?
I mean, if we're talking just like some moves that I liked what Washington did in compiling a bunch of picks.
I was going to say that.
But I hesitate to answer for them because like it's easy to win trades when you're not trying to win games. You know, that's the easy type of trade to win. I don't want to demean it. They did a good job. Like they took on a bunch of picks. They took on picks for taking in Marcus Smart. They got a first for taking in Reggie Jackson. They got a swap for taking in Chris Middleton, who, by the way, I think can still play. He just can't stay healthy. But like Chris Middleton can still play. He's still a solid player, and they got good veterans to put around their young guys too, which I think is a good thing for them. But I don't want to say them because I feel like it's not a great answer. I will say I like the DeAndre Hunter trade a lot for Cleveland. And I was in on Cleveland already. I think they are legit. I think they're really, really good on both sides of the ball. And the thing that the Cavs have been trying to adjust or trying to improve at for years, even this year, where they have been just awesome the whole way, is like they've kind of had that rotating spot at the 3. Sometimes it's Dean Wade, sometimes it's Okoro, sometimes it's LeVert. And you go to the playoffs and it's like that has been kind of a sore for them in their best lineups, where like you have Allen and Mobley down low and you have Garland and Mitchell up top. And who's going to be in that 3? Is it going to be LeVert, who maybe you can take advantage of a little bit on the defensive end? Is it going to be Okoro, who you don't have to guard in the corner and you can just put like your best roaming defender on him and just have a helper in the lane all the time, which takes away the paint from Allen, takes away rebound opportunities, takes away drives from Mitchell and from Garland. Like it really mucks up the offense when you take that strategy. That's what happened in the Knicks series a couple of years ago. Yeah. Where like the Knicks were just like, we're just not going to guard that guy in the corner, and it ruined them. And DeAndre Hunter is having a really good year for them. And if he's going to play at the same level, like good argument, DeAndre Hunter was the leader for 6th man of the year. You know, if he was going to play enough games in order to do it, averaging 19 a game off the bench, shooting almost 40% from 3, shooting really well on corner threes, getting to the line more than he ever has, playing more physical defense, I think, than he ever has. He has been really good for them. And if he is going to be somebody who's in the corner on those plays, like you have to guard DeAndre Hunter. He shoots 40% from the corners. Like you got to guard him on those plays. He's really good at a backdoor cut when a defender isn't paying attention. He's been much better off the ball. And I think you put him with Kenny Atkinson and he's going to fit really well into the way that they run that offense. He doesn't have to worry about that much. I think you just he's plug and play for them. And I thought that was a really good move for them, a really good trade. I think the Cavs, even though LeVert's had a great year, LeVert has had a great year. Right. But I think they got better. And I like that move for them. And I appreciate that team moving forward. Like one thing we're not talking about much is Cleveland is going to be expensive as heck next year because they've got a bunch of guys under major contracts, right? So they've got Mobley making a ton of money. They got Mitchell making a ton of money. They got Garland making a ton of money. They got Allen making 20. They got Strus making 15. They got Okoro making 11. And now they're bringing in more future money. Like they're going to have Hunter making whatever it is next year, $24 million. They've got Ty Jerome, who's a free agent, who they might want to bring back, and he's going to deserve a raise. They got Sam Merrill, who's a free agent, who they might want to bring back, and who will deserve a raise. And there's a decent chance Cleveland's going to be a second apron team next year. That's in the cards. That's something you got to consider because of the money there. And knowing all of that, it's not like they forgot about that. Knowing all of that, they were like, let's go bring on future money. Knowing all of that because they believe in this roster, and they believe in this roster enough all the way up to an ownership level to where they're like, go do this thing. Like, let's go do this thing. And I don't think they're necessarily all in from a roster perspective because they have flexibility because they have good players on good it's not like any of the numbers that I said are
you can't move, they're not unreasonable. Yeah,
they're all good contracts. Just they have a lot of good players who deserve to make money. You know, like Max Strus makes 15. That's movable, but Max Strus he makes 15 because he's worth 15. You know, he's a good player. Jared Allen makes 20. He's worth way more than 20. Like. He's worth way more than that. And they got him to a good extension that kicks in next year. They did a really good job extending their guys this past summer on to be able to keep them around for the long haul. So if they're willing to pay, and it sounds like they very well might be, and based on their actions, it seems like they very well might be, this team could stay together for a while. And I appreciate an organization that's like screw it. We think we're good and we're going to pay for stuff. And we're going to make sure that we continue to be good.
Look, I think, going back to your point about DeAndre Hunter, he's a guy who's averaging 20, but I don't look at him as a 20-point scorer. I just look at him as being a little bit overtaxed in that way. But you put him on a team like that, you're not asking him to score 20. You're telling him, hey, you can be a secondary guy. You're going to be able to take advantage of the swing, a lot of the pressure we're going to put on the rim with our pick and rolls, and you're going to get a lot of open shots, but we really need you to defend. And that game against Boston was huge for them because they saw, oh, no, we can't hang. We have to make a significant personnel move to get us in this spots to guard Tatum and Brown, or at least to keep them busy on the other end. So I think that is critical.